Yes, so welcome along to our Shortgrass Kildare Nationalist Sports Podcast. I am Ger McNally, standing in for our usual host, Pat Costello, who, looking out the window here, has picked up a very good week to head off to Spain and enjoy some sunnier and warmer climates there. But we have a strong team here, as usual, looking forward and back to all the action around Kildare sport over the last 7 days and ahead as well. We have our usual contributor, Tommy O'Connell. We also have a Shortgrass debutant, KFM commentator and Kildare Nationalist reporter, and also, although it might be need a supporter of a certain generation to remember it, but a fine player back in the day as well, Seamus Dillon. Glad to have you on board with us, Seamus. Here.
You're very kind, Ger. Tommy, evening. Delighted to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, as usual, we have lots to look forward to, but before we look forward, we're going to look back to some of the games from last weekend, and I suppose it was the ladies who were dominating things over last weekend, because we had two big games. Seamus, you were at one of them, I was at the other. So we started, I suppose, with the senior championship, because it was St. Lawrence's taking on Milltown of Westmeath at home in their home venue there in Old Grange. I suppose St. Lawrence's had a good run in Leinster back the last time they were county champions back in 2016, but unfortunately, Seamus, they fell at the first hurdle this time around.
Yeah, very unfortunate. I suppose when you look at it, Ger, there was a goal from a penalty inside the opening 3 minutes, and as sometimes it often happens, and you talk about it and say it, the goal was the difference between the two teams nearly the whole way through to the very end. A late Laura Kieran point for the Milltown girls put them 1-7-6 ahead. So there was nothing between them, but you'd probably say that Milltown were a more experienced side, better balanced, and probably have been there before, and that just sort of maybe came to the forefront. But they had some wonderful players like Sarah Dillon, I think was on the intermediate team of the year this year as corner forward from playing with Westmeath. But early minutes of the second half, she got two vital scores that opened up a 3-point lead again, and that was sort of the play. But I suppose Lawrence's, when they look back, the amount of wides that they kicked over the hour, they certainly had enough possession to have been in front. They got back to within a point with 15 minutes to go, but just couldn't see it through. A couple of decisions that went against them. They did win a free to level it up, and for some unknown reason they decided to go short. And it certainly proved their undoing, because Milltown went back down the field. But, from full back right through to full forward, Milltown had some big physical players, no more so than Leanne Slevin with 1-2 in the middle of the field. They were strong throughout, and Sinead Slevin is a fine player at full forward. I'd say if she had stood up under the poor conditions on Sunday, she could have had any sort of score, because she won a lot of ball. But look, it's disappointing for Lawrence's, because they would have been fancying their chances, especially being at home. But the conditions were tough for both sides, very, very heavy underfoot. But it was Milltown that just maybe that goal, as I say, saw them over the line, and they just probably adapted the best to those conditions on the afternoon.
Tommy, St. Lawrence's, I'm not quite sure of the exact number, but there was a number of players who were involved as well with the Camogie team, who had lost 24 hours earlier against Abbey Leaks, I think it was, in Laois. They only went down by 4 or 5 points as well. But, again, it's an issue every year. We hear dual players getting punished, really, I suppose, and clubs who are successful being punished, because again, to ask any player to play an elite level of a Leinster Championship game, to play two in the space of 24 hours is tough going. And even if it was only 3 or 4, I actually suspect there might have been a couple more who were involved in both games, then it was bound to have an effect going into a lesser senior championship game.
Yeah, big time. But it's kind of it really is hard to know as well. Like, the conditioning of players in the ladies' games now it's unbelievable now where it was compared to, say, 5 years ago. It's phenomenal. It really is. Like, you guys report on a lot of these matches. I mean, you can see the level of fitness that they show in an hour. So 24 hours is a short turnaround. You're going to feel it in the legs, especially when you're playing interprovincial competitions. But that Leinster competition is so difficult, and we saw Eadstown last year. I know Kilmacud were like a super outfit, but just to see, like, you never know who you're going to get. You never know what the quality. Like Milltown, I don't know what kind of a break they had as well. suddenly you get this week into your legs, or you could get 2 weeks into their legs. The Larry's girls are coming off, that the Camogie as well. It's a really kind of a hard thing. Some people say that they prefer it. They like playing both codes. It keeps them sharp. Sometimes they like playing matches together if they do have that level of fitness, and it's almost like a warm up. I know that sounds terrible. No disrespect to the first match that was on, no disrespect to Camogie, because it'd be the same with vice versa. Some girls come off after playing 60 minutes of a match, and within an hour they're bouncing around and they'll probably play again. So you can look at it both ways. It might not have been ideal, but I don't think Larry's girls are ones for making excuses either. So they'll know where things went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking for both St. Lawrence's teams, and a special mention as well to the goalkeeper on the Camogie side, Melanie Tracy, who at 56 years of age will still keep the goal. We had a great interview in the Nationalist this week with her nephew, Queeveen Tracy, who's been writing for us for a while, and he did an interview with his aunt, and it was a lovely interview, and it'll be up online there again tomorrow for anybody who didn't read it. But yeah, 56 years of age, Melanie Tracy, she is a legend of Kildare GAA, and we'll move on maybe to more success for Kildare sides at intermediate level. There's a picture of one of the Kildare GAA legends there playing for Ballina, Aisling Holton. She got on for the last 15 minutes or so. Also, Siobhan Hurley, she got on for the last 5 minutes, plus a couple of minutes of injury time, as Ballina held on for a really battling, hard-fought 1-point victory over Cologne, 9 points to 1-5. It was about 5 minutes of injury time, just going by the usual kind of way of counting the time. There was no countdown clock, obviously, there. So, yeah, it was about 5 minutes of injury time, and it was nervy time. I think Ballina didn't score for the last 7 or 8 minutes, but they managed to keep Cologne out. But, yeah, wonderful result. And as I said, two Kildare GAA legends there, Aisling Holton and Siobhan Hurley, but a real good spread of ages as well, because there's a lot of young girls coming through there as well. Grace, Avian Burchell and Grace Gallagher as well. They're really top-class young players, and Julie Brannigan as well in midfield. So, yeah, fantastic for Ballina. They can look forward now to a Leinster final.
It's massive. It's massive for that club, and you have to compare it as well, maybe to Kilcock last year. The Kilcock, the journey. A lot of teams like the journey into Leinster, they don't know what's coming, and then they won the junior last year, didn't they? They played against Ballia Dove Tira. Were they the
Wexford side, was it? Yeah,
the Wexford side, yeah. And then they won that, and then they had this All Ireland semi-final up in a beautiful remote spot of Donegal, and it's amazing how people look at seasons where it'll be over by October, September, but these journeys carry on. And I think, are they playing St. Feckin's now?
St. Feckin's, yeah, that's a lovely name, yeah.
Loud, yeah.
Loud, yeah. The Loud manager's over him, isn't he? I thought I read that during the week in the paper.
He's over Ballina. Yeah, interesting, yeah, because I think she's the St. Feckin's captain, but certainly one of their star players, and she was the player of the match for Loud when they beat Antrim in Croke Park, when Kevin Larkin was managing the Loud side to All Ireland Junior Glory, and now, yeah, he's over Ballina going up against St. Feckin's in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's, in fairness.
Yeah, it's great for Ballina. I was just saying it's great for Ballina. There's a lot of experience in that panel, but to have the likes of Aisling Holton and Siobhan Hurley to call in, maybe to see out a game, probably both of those will probably be looking for a starting place for a Leinster final. But that type of experience, and they've done it with Ballina, they've done it with Kildare at Camogie level as well. I mean, Johnstown Bridge, Ballina have been so successful. So, it's just continuing down. And I've seen a good few of those girls with Ballina. I was actually just looking at the team the other day. A lot of them have played Camogie this year with Kildare. So, they have a lot of experience, a lot of physicality, a lot of groundwork and homework done. And, looking forward to it. It should be a good Leinster final, but it'll be tough against Feckin's. They have a lot of experience as well.
Yeah, both Aisling and Siobhan have become mothers, I suppose, in the not too distant past, and Aisling especially so. I think only in the last 8 or 9 weeks has become a mother and back on the field and back preparing for a Leinster final. As I said, they're two unbelievable role models. But a couple of other players as well who would have had great success in Kildare jerseys on that team too, Erica Burke and also Rachel Cribben. And I spoke to Rachel after the game, Seamus, and I believe, yeah, you're all set for the big Dowling and Cribben wedding that is on in a couple of weeks. That Leinster final is on the week beforehand, so Rachel was saying that she hopes that they get the job done in the day. There's no need for any replay or anything else because it might crash into the wedding, but it would be nice for Rachel maybe to bring along that cup there and celebrate that wedding that's on then the following week after that Leinster final that's due for 8th of November.
Yeah, a fair mix of talent on that wedding that particular day, and I've sent a couple of representatives from the Dillon household, Ger, but I won't be partaking myself. But I have to say that Paul and Cribben and Ellen Dowling, look at two wonderful players for Kildare, for Suncroft and Johnstown Bridge down the years, and look at it's going to be a wonderful day out. I can imagine. Bit like what Tommy said earlier about being the fly in the wall. Yeah, it'll be it's the place to be that weekend.
Absolutely. Well, sorry, Tommy, do you want to jump in there?
No, I agree with everything that Seamus says.
Excellent. Well, obviously, there was plenty of, I suppose, Kildare headlines regarding Kildare ladies, both camogie and football, and we'll talk about those later in the game. But when we're looking back on last week as well, I suppose there were issues involving the men's games as well. They were scheduled because Tommy, last Friday evening was set to be 2 reserve finals, but in particular the Reserve A final between Naas and Athy. And it was a game I think we were all looking forward to. I would imagine from both sides, certainly for Athy anyway, there was a couple of them maybe had cut short the celebrations after the senior championship victory just a few days earlier, and we're preparing for that game on Friday. And lo and behold, I was about half an hour away, about half an hour from throw-in on the way over to Mangard Park when I got the call to say that unfortunately there had been an issue with the generator. Unfortunately, there'd be no lights for that game, and that game, along with the reserve, I think it was E, was it? I think Cullen and Ellistown, and both of them had to be called off. I think Cullen have since won that reserve title, but the Athy v Naas game is scheduled now, I think, for next Tuesday.
Yeah, in fairness, it's like we're not going to come on and try get the sound bites, who's to blame and all this kind of stuff. These things happen, but when you look at it from a kind of a general point of view, you're thinking like there's players, there's fans on the way to the match, there's players there, they're gearing themselves up all week, they're training for certain things, and for something like that to happen so late, so late in the day, and for it to be a last minute thing, I mean, yeah, like there has to be some criticism put to someone, but at the same time, these things aren't, they're not done on purpose, kind of a thing. But you can imagine how annoying it was, just for something like that. Hopefully, there's learnings there in it, because that was a spicy match. Now Friday, I wasn't able to go to it. I'm glad I didn't now waste the diesel heading over. Excuse the pun. But it was I was just like, with everything that went on the week before, and like you've seen the players on those teams. I remember seeing that Athy reserve team, I think, playing the league back during the summer. I was watching the updates coming in, and it was a who's who of Athy that were scoring the points and the goals. So yeah, that would have been great. Really disappointing for them. Yeah, probably not good enough. That doesn't look great. Kind of on the people kind of running the show there, but at the same time, these things do happen, and there's less of a chance now of it happening in the future, thankfully.
Yeah, and forgive my ignorance now, I'll ask this question, but might that have a knock-on effect for Athy in the Leinster Championship? Because there were players listed on county final day among their subs who, I would say, I won't say they're saving them for that Reserve A Championship, but certainly they were involved. Had they played in that final and that championship being over, and then any possibility of them not being available for that championship, might they have been considered then as an option off the bench for the Athy team that's playing in the Leinster Championship now on Sunday?
Yeah, I'd say that's certainly a concern, Jared. I think everybody would have been happy to have had it done and dusted last week and give Conor Ronan and Rossi Bell that a clear sheet, to work from next Sunday up in Ockram. But it's going to be, it's going to be a situation where do we or don't we, if it comes down to the wire. But I'd say probably at the end of the day, and all respect to Athy's first team or their second team, that if the lads have to be used, they will be used. I just think that's the main goal. That's the main thing for the year. It does happen throughout the year where lads come on and the lads scratching their heads and saying, why did you bring him on? But I think it's a different situation with Athy now in the position that they're in. It's Leinster Senior Club Championship, and if somebody has to come off the bench, they'll come off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will be looking ahead to all those Leinster Championship games shortly. But before we start that, there was another announcement of a retirement during the week. Of course, Mick O'Grady following Daniel Flynn in announcing his retirement, and that means that Tailteann Cup win over Limerick in Croke Park will be, like Daniel, it'll be Mick O'Grady's last game. I suppose, Tommy, when you think of Daniel Flynn, obviously there's all the highlights, the goals, the points. Maybe harder to think of a standout moment for a defender like Mick O'Grady, but just the kind of general sense of a really consistent performer, a really high-level consistent performer for Kildare down through the years, and spent over a decade in a lily white jersey. And thanks to Richard Commons, our stats man, he is apparently 11th in the list, the all-time list of appearances for. I mean, that's a very, very good, solid career that he can take a lot of pride in looking back over.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about highlights. Obviously, that Daniel had them all. The highlight for me, for Mick, it was as soon as I I heard obviously last night about his retirement, and I was doing up that graphic that's on the screen, and I was going back, and there was a couple of pictures, and then the picture popped up of him chasing Clifford in Newbridge, and he did some job on him that day. David Clifford was coming in going to beat Kildare on his own in a packed St. Conleth's Park, and Mick O'Grady is one of the few men to then until now to really, really keep him quiet. I mean, there were times in that game where I just thought Mick was absolutely fantastic. That's one of the big highlights, like, for me. But it's more than highlights for Mick. As he was the captain of the county. He was such a pure, raw Kildare football man. I mean, watching him bouncing out of the old dressing room at St. Conleth's Park, clutching the St. Bridget's cross. That's something that's it's funny because with the emergence of such good photographers in the past 3 or 4 years, we're only capturing those really good images now where you see the likes of Mick with the St. Bridget's cross, and he always had it, and that was kind of it was not that it was his thing, but it was something that he's well known for. He's obviously, that's the pride coming through in him. You can see how proud Cellbridge are as well, with their wonderful statement that they put out, and indeed Kildare GA as well. Very nice statement, because I know he would have been very close to Mick Mullen as well, and still is close to him. But just wonderful Kildare captain. He obviously thought the time was right, so the very best luck to him. But I can guarantee you he'll continue for Cellbridge. It's only the last couple of years, lads, you're thinking to yourself, geez, maybe we should have been playing him at midfield for Kildare when we see how good he was going forward. Geez, the point, I doing up the scorer charts last year in the 2024 championship, and I'm looking at it thinking, Mick O'Grady's been on this top score, like he's appearing up there for the first 3 or 4 rounds. And I'm thinking, why have we been playing him cornerback or full back for years when he clearly loves a point? So yeah, what a wonderful player.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Seamus. He probably was and still is a better footballer as a pure footballer, and can add more going forward. And sometimes he was given credit for, but I suppose he was just needed at the back because man marking was probably his outstanding attribute. But it was only one of many, I suppose, that he brought to the team as a player.
Yeah, look, at quiet, unassuming, but got on with the job. He was just a tremendous defender. I think, when you sit down and weigh it up and have a look over what he's brought for the last 10 years, he's right up there with some of the top defenders that have ever played for Kildare. And, last night when I read that statement as well, there was, I suppose, a small part of me that said, oh no, not another one gone, because like Mick O'Grady's been such an integral part of Kildare football. And even when Brian Flanagan was seeing out the last 8 or 10 minutes in that Tailteann Cup final, he brought in Mick O'Grady to, steady the ship, for the want of a better word. His experience was unbelievable. But, when you sit down and look at what he did as a defender for Kildare football over the last couple of years, as Tommy said, his ability to play further out the field, at centre back, in the middle of the field, and get forward and get scores, it just shows how much there was to his game. He wasn't just a wonderful defender, and he drove Cellbridge to be so close to winning a county title over the last, not this year, but the previous 2 years. You'd always would have said if anyone deserved a county senior championship, it was Mick O'Grady. But he leaves a lasting legacy. He's going to be he'll be hard replaced. There's plenty of lads coming through, but yeah, I wish him the best of luck. And I think I'm right in saying, I think next month of November he is getting married as well. So hopefully that's nothing got to do with the retirement, but we wish him good luck there as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll have plenty of time to spend with his new wife whenever that wedding does take place. And the very best of luck to Mick, absolutely. And I'm sure he won't give up on his dream of winning a county title with Selbridge just yet, just stepping away from the Kildare setup. But Tommy, I suppose with Owen Doyle's departure last year and now Mick O'Grady, like that's a big experience block out of the back line. Now we still have maybe David Hyland, who would be in there with a hugely experienced player, but O'Grady and Doyle, they were two proper leaders back there. And I suppose it's up now to the other guys in that backline to step up and become those leaders, and it just emphasises, I suppose, that the turnover and change that is happening within the Kildare panel.
Yeah, got a message off a good friend of mine earlier who would be a big GA fan, and he saw the news earlier today about Mick that was announced last night, and he said, Tommy, I don't like these retirements, because you understand, everybody steps away for their own reasons, and the county is just so appreciative of what they've done, but we're selfish as Kildare fans, and we want that experience there, and we want those voices, even if Mick wasn't starting, even if Owen Doyle wasn't starting, we knew they were there and they were on the bench and their presence was there. So I'm hoping there aren't too many more coming. I'm hoping the fact that we're going into November, that this is the end of it now, but it's a very young team anyway. And you really do need those experienced voices. But the characters of those young lads, the lads that have won the under-20s All-Ireland already, the maturity they're showing, the James McGraths, the Harry O'Neills, like these lads. I mentioned early in the pod. No, I didn't. I mentioned this when I was on with Johnny Doyle and Podge Fogarty on Clinched. I was chatting about Colm Dalton. Was standing up, and he was the one barking orders, and he actually said David Hyland had a misplaced pass in the Fermanagh game, and he had his head down, and it was Colm Dalton that went to Hylo. Come on, Hylo, next one. And Hylo was like, here's one of the youngest lads on the team telling me to shake myself, maybe I should. So that we should think about that, thinking these young lads they're going to have another year in their legs, another year of experience. They've won a trophy now, so there's two parts to it. But there's no substitute for a couple of experienced heads, a couple of old lads on the team that you might want.
Yeah, well, the old lads are getting younger and younger on the Kildare team these days. It's a young side, but yeah, no, absolutely, we absolutely echo those thoughts. The very best of luck to Mick in the future. We'll still see him turn out, I'm sure, for Selbridge for many years to come. But he certainly has great memories, and particularly, I think one of the standout memories for me, I was thinking after the Mayo game, the famous Newbridge or Nowhere game, he was right in the midst of the celebrations that day and really enjoying it. So, yeah, absolutely, the very best of luck to Mick O'Grady, and he leaves behind him great memories of over a decade service to the Kildare jersey. So moving on now, and I think we're going to look at
just one thing before.
Sorry, James.
Go ahead, Sherry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Fine. No, I was only going to say about Mick and to you and any of the lads in the press. He was always so accommodating, and I remember one night down in Carlow there when Kildare were playing. It could have been maybe even the Donegal game. I can't remember. Maybe the game that we got relegated, but massive disappointment. But he still had time to give a little interview, and that was one measure of the man that he was. He always had time for the press, and for KFM leader in the Nationalist, there was always an interview from him. So thank him for that as well.
Yeah, it's probably the job that the captains don't like. It's easy, I suppose, to do those interviews after the good days, but yeah, some of the captains down through the years have done them on the bad days, and unfortunately Mick had a couple of bad days as a team there when he was captain, and yeah, he was always a leader like that, and absolutely he was a leader on and off the field. And yeah, as I said, we wish him the very best of luck in retirement and his future married life, and as I said, we will see plenty of him still in a Selbridge jersey for many more years as he chases that county title. But I suppose we'll switch attention now to the winners of those county titles, because this weekend the Leinster Football Championship in terms of Kildare teams really kicks off in earnest. And on Sunday we'll go to, I suppose, not going in chronological order, but maybe working back from the Senior Championship. But there is a tie, of course, travelling to Auckland to take on Baltinglass of Wicklow at 1:30 on Sunday. Yeah, we'll have it live on KFM. I think Pat Costello will be back from Spain covering on a clubboard as well at that stage, and of course we'll have it extensively on the Kildare Nationalist website and indeed in next Tuesday's paper as well. But Tommy, the old cliche is that Ockram is a difficult place to go to, particularly as the weather maybe isn't going to be the nicest. How difficult will a tie find Sunday's clash against the Baltinglass side to, I think I've won they've been a 5 of the last 6 Wicklow finals. They've lost a couple of them. Actually, like a tie, this is their first their first county title win since 2020, but they are regular finalists in the Wicklow final there. So how difficult a game is this for a tie going to Ockram on Sunday to face Baltinglass?
Yeah, I mean, Ockram, as everybody I think in the country knows, the Ockram is like, even when the Dubs were at their best and Wicklow weren't a few years ago, people are still like, oh, geez, lads, it's Ockram. You never know, even though you did know the Dubs were going to beat them by going to give them a scutcheon. I'm fascinated to know whether, because I don't think like this match could have possibly been in Baltinglass. Like Baltinglass have a really good setup out there. I don't know if you've been in it recently. They have an excellent setup in Baltinglass. A lot of the Wicklow under 20 matches might be there, like their minor matches, ladies. There's a lot of matches out there. I just think on your home patch, but if it's predetermined, the start of the year, that has to be. The only reason I'm saying this is that the Downs is hosting a match in either the intermediate or junior, and I'm interested to see, because there hasn't been a venue announced for the Downs versus Tullamore, as you can see in the quarter final there. That's hardly going to be in Mullingar if the Downs can host the match. I'm waiting to see that fixture. I bet your life that's going to be in the Downs. But anyway, it's just, yeah, it is. If Baltinglass are happy enough to go to Ockram, then fair enough. Baltinglass, anybody that comes out of Wicklow, I think they're going to be pretty hardened, as you see every year. As we all know it, they won 2 of their last 3 matches after extra time penalties. One of them, they have some wonderful players in there. The one I'd be worried about, it's such a weird thing to say. Did you ever hear anybody talking about a Gaelic match and say you're worried about the opposition goalkeeper? But like Mark Jackson is such a super player. I did not want to meet Wicklow in that Tailteann Cup final, because Mark Jackson's boot in Crow Park, I mean, it's worth 6 to 8 points. He scored 6 points in the county final again. And it's high. You need to be very, very wary of that. You know, they probably got away with one with Alex Byrne turning down the 55-yard punt in the county final. Mark Jackson won't be turning them down, so they can't give him any opportunity at all. There's a young man playing for Baltinglass as well called Jack Kerwin, who is played a bit of soccer with Castle Villa. You'll be shocked to hear that I knew that. But he has his relations in Castle Dermot, and obviously Baltinglass is so close to Castle Dermot to live a crossover. But he's a midfielder, and he got man of the match in the county final. He's a wonderful footballer, and he's an absolute superstar in the air. So you're wondering then again, would he have his eye on Feely? You know, some people say, "God, would Feely pick him up?" But a young man like that, you know, would he have look and say, "Geez, I want to take on Kevin Feely in the middle field. I'm going to target him," because he has nothing to fear now. Like he is on cloud 9 after that final. Everybody's raving about him in Wicklow. He played against Kildare. When did he play Wicklow? 2023 in Carlow. When Paddy Woodgate's goal got us over the line eventually. But he was really good that day as well. So the players are there. I was looking at them earlier as well, and Tommy Keogh, another man to watch out for in the half forward line, kind of nipping in and out to the corner. You're wondering who's going to pick him up, because I'm trying to think who Baltinglass in the final had to deal. Who was playing with Carnew? Oh God, I'm after forgetting, but I wrote it down. What's it? Ben Brosnan. So Ben Brosnan plays the football for Carnew. We all know how wonderful he was as a Wexford footballer. But Baltinglass kept him quiet because they understood that he's I'm pretty sure he's the top scorer or definitely in the top 3 in the Wicklow Senior Football Championship this year. But Baltinglass had a plan for him in the final, kept him quiet for the majority of it, spoke to a couple people at the game, and they said they had him marshalled or pushing him out of the centre half forward position that he does a lot of his damage in. So you can absolutely guarantee that Baltinglass will have their homework done on a tie over the last couple of weeks. It's going to be really tough, like really, really tough. A tie they're in slightly unknown territory now. Like we know they didn't play Leinster in 2020.
No.
You know, I mean, a lot of these lads, with provincial championships are unknown anyway. But I'd be a little bit, you know, I'm going up to it now thinking, yeah, a tie, like, really, I hope they didn't peak in the county final. That was the best we saw of them this year. It really was. Like, they were just the best we've seen from them in a number of years. So hopefully they've done their homework on Bottinglass as well, because there's plenty of threat there in Bottinglass. So let's see. Anyway, looking forward to it. Should be good.
Yeah, Seamus kind of, Tommy touched on it there. It is a long time since a tie played in Leinster. Back in 2011, remember all the talk about a tie was that they were the coming side, and although they kind of just fell short that year in 2011, such was the age profile of the side at the time that a lot of people thought they would come back and have another crack at it very soon, but they've had to wait a long time. But back in 2011, they beat Eden Derry, they beat O'Loughlin of Carlow, and then up against Gary Castle in a Leinster semi-final, they put up a really good showing. A 17-year-old David Hyland was marking Desi Dolan that day, but they just came up short that day. They've had to wait a long, long time to get another crack at Leinster, and although I'm sure they absolutely enjoyed that brilliant county final win over Naas for a few days after it, I'm sure the focus would have turned pretty quickly as well to that Leinster championship, and they certainly won't be underestimating the challenge that's ahead of them, and they want to make their impact on Leinster this year.
Yeah, look at it. It's a, I suppose in one way it's a potential banana skin, like Tommy had said. It certainly is, because going to Ockram for any team, I remember an old man years ago used to often say in Suncroft, the All Blacks wouldn't win in Ockram, and it's come to pass for Kildare, I suppose, for Kildare in the past. But in saying that, you know, I think a tie, yes, it's a big game. Yes, it's a potential bananas game, but I think a tie will have come out of that county final. You know, we saw two sides of a tie, as you said, throughout the season, and maybe against Selbridge, they were, you know, probably at their worst in that particular game. But I think that win over Naas has probably given them a new injection of life. And I think if you sit down and have a look at that, a tie team from 1 to 15, and you know, some good subs to come in, like Ben Purcell came in the last to see out the game. But you'd be hoping that a tie have enough to see them over the line. But it's it's a dangerous game. You know, they certainly have the potential to have the talent, but yeah, you'd just be just a little bit worried as to what Bottinglass will bring to the table. Yeah, we do know what they have, what their history of being involved in club championships is massive, and you know, it's a proud history that they have. So they won't be given up too easily on Sunday.
Yeah, Tommy, you mentioned some of the threats there that Bottinglass carry, but obviously a tie have threats of their own, and it'll be up to them to try and stamp their mark on the game. And Barry Kelly, I suppose, if he has got over his calf injury that forced him out the last kind of 10 minutes of that county final, he looked to replicate that man of the match performance, and I suppose he'll have a bit of a target on his back, which maybe creates a bit of space maybe perhaps for other guys. Colin Moore probably had a bit of a target on his back maybe going into the county final, but if Bottinglass are now have their attention shifted to maybe somebody like Barry Kelly, that maybe again creates more space for others.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, Ger, in fairness, because it is what it is. Lads looking there, people read match reports, you know, they see the headlines, they see the news, and obviously Barry was a big deal, deserving man of the match in that final. All the pictures are of him, you know, punching the air, slapping the chest. So maybe, you know, you're hoping maybe there's a bit of naivety in there, and you know, they do take their eye off, like Colin Moore, that we know all about, you know, and that we've spoken about at length on this podcast. The Bottinglass have a defender called Chris Heaslip, and he actually got a red card in the final for having a bit of a tussle with Ben Brosnan off the ball, because he was obviously tasked with, you know, keeping him quiet, maybe annoying him, you know. So they had a bit of I don't know, it wasn't a straight red anyway. He got a black and a yellow. But it was then I'm just thinking, who would he be marking now if he's a really bit of a sparky half back, you know, a bit of pace, likes annoying people, likes getting under people's skin. Well, imagine he came up against Barry Kelly. I mean, if you remember this day, if there is a player, lads, on Sunday called Chris Heaslip, and he's picking up Barry Kelly, and Barry Kelly's picking up him, just keep an eye on it, because it could be tasty enough. Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it. Actually, I don't think I was looking forward to it as much before we started talking about it. So it's the value of talking about matches. It should be a cracker.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really looking forward to that. And the very best of luck to Athy as they represent Kildare and I suppose more importantly represent themselves going into the Leinster Championship. Been a long wait for them to have a crack at it again. So really looking forward to seeing how they can get on in Auckland on Sunday in Balticlass. As we said, it is live on KFM. And we'll have lots of coverage of it in the Kildare Nationalist. Just to mention, I suppose, those other games taking place this weekend in the Leinster Championship as well as the Senior Championship on Sunday, Summerhill versus Costello. I suppose that's one that should Athy come through the game in Auckland that they will obviously be paying close attention to because they will play the winners of that game at home in a quarter-final. So we will be keeping an eye on that one. But before that, on Saturday evening, there's some Kildare interest in the other Leinster Championship game because Brian Lonergan of Monster 11, he is the man in charge of O'Loughlin, who won their first Carlow title in 12 years, and they take on Port Arlington of Laois at 6:15, and that one is being shown live, I think, on RTE2 if anybody wants to get their fix of GAA before the rugby starts on Saturday evening. But yeah, Brian Lonergan's done a great job down there. O'Loughlin, they've got some fine players like some Mikey Bambrick, Shawnee Bambrick's brother, Aaron Almond as well, but to get their first title since 2013 is some going, and they'll go in now against the Port Arlington side that I've only got a week rest since they claimed the title in Laois. They needed a replay to get over Courtwood before claiming their title. I suppose Port Arlington will be favourites, but that week turnaround has caught teams out in the past, and it'll be interesting to see how Port Arlington can deal with that.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 finals, I think, for Port Arlington in the last couple of years, which is no mean achievement. But yeah, the extra week of having to play that replay, and no doubt there's probably some form of a celebration last Sunday night down in Port Arlington. But yeah, they'd be coming in as definitely favourites, Ger. But yeah, dangerous game, because as you say, O'Loughlin, again, they probably would have had their celebrations as well, but the extra week probably make a difference. I suppose the one thing you find about this time of the year is that the weather is so bad, pitches become a little bit of a leveler. It's there's never big scores. It's a massive battle between sides, to get over the line, and it could be one of those games on Sunday afternoon or Saturday evening as well.
Port Arlington have a habit of winning county championships and then losing players that either go abroad or go do something else before they hit the provincial championships. I don't think it's the same this year. I think they've held on to the majority of their players. Remember a couple of years ago, didn't they play against Kilmacud? Was that a Leinster final? It was in Croke Park. It was a Leinster final against Kilmacud Crokes. I think as well as they did, I think they were still missing a couple of players. So, I mean, Courtwood, you have to hand it to Courtwood and Laois for our friends, all of our friends that live on the Laois border in Kildare. They'll know that was some achievement for those lads getting to a final as well. Bringing Port Arlington to a replay. So I tell you that second match there, like Summerhill, if Summerhill can get through, and Athy, please God, can get through, like you're looking at Athy versus Summerhill in St. Conlet's Park that weekend, the 15-16. Like that could be a Saturday night game, in St. Conlet's Park. And then the card for that then again is another home semi-final 2 weeks later again. Like it's just if you look at these brackets, it just shows the value of these games, and like we saw how Kildare teams have gone over the past couple of years at all of these grades. And I always think there's a bit people kind of sit back and like, oh yeah, the provincial championships are on, the senior, intermediate, junior, the ladies, the Camogie, and it's kind of people forget about the teams that get beaten early, and then the interest peaks in the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then people realise, this is a great competition. This is brilliant. It just shows you the value of this club season all the way up to December. Final on the 6th of December. I mean, it is. It's great to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly we hope Athy will be in that final on the 6th of December. A lot of steps to get through first. The first of those on Sunday in Auckland. So yeah, we look forward to that one. But before that, on Saturday afternoon, there's a really mouth-watering looking double header involving both Grange and Sallins. So we'll start with Tommy. Which one are we going? We're going for the intermediate one first. So so Carlow opponents for Sallins, the second of those two games in St. Conlet's Park on Saturday afternoon. That one throwing in at 3:15, and so a little bit similar to what we mentioned there with Port Arlington, maybe even more so for Grange of Carlow. They only won their intermediate title on Sunday. That would have been a big one for them. 6 days later, then going out against Sallins, I think it would have been a tough game for Grange, no matter what sort of build-up they had to it, but that's going to make it even more difficult for them. And I suppose, Tommy, we've big hopes for Sallins, Alan Wood and Cara the last couple of years, mean that they'll have a target on their back, I suppose, going in. But And yeah, they have a real chance, I suppose, to make a big impact at this Leinster Championship this year.
They do. They're going to, like you mentioned about Grange having a 6-day turnaround. It's also their 9th weekend on the trot. So we spoke weeks ago about, split seasons and the gaps between hurling matches in Kildare and how Carlo run it all off and all this stuff. 9 weeks on the trot, lads, is some going. I met a couple of guys from Grange at the weekend, and it was before the Ballon match, and they said if we get through it and we play year lads, as they called it, that'll be our 9th weekend in a row. And I was looking back, and it is like it's some going for them, for people that don't know where they are.
Does that, I suppose, going totally off on a tangent, does that say maybe why penalty shootouts maybe should be used a little bit more? Because as far as I know, Grange drew both their semi-final and final, so they had replays in both of those games. So that obviously they should have theoretically only had a week off going into the final, then a week off going into the Leinster Championship. Because replays were needed, they played, as you say, 9 weekends in a row now by Saturday.
No. No, that's a penalty shootout. Just dreadful, horrible way to end a championship you've been training for 9 months. Listen, Grange. Great. I was just going to say there, for people that don't know, because people hear the word Grange, I think even people that might be tuning in now a little late, we're talking about Grange. They're situated in Kildare, which is halfway between Castledermot in the very south tip of Kildare and Tullow in Carlow, and it's a very small area. They're flanked by Carlow Town is over to one side, and then the other side is kind of getting over, of course, Rathvilly, and then you're into Wicklow. So it's an amazing achievement for them to get back up to senior football. To be playing Sallins, coming up to play them in Newbridge. They had 3 players on the county panel this year. People probably would have heard of Ned Pender anyway. He's been on it for the last couple of years. One man that's not on the county panel this year, but people might remember his name, John Murphy. He was captain of Carlow when Carlow beat Kildare in Tullamore in 2018. He scored 9 points. I think, was it 8 or 9 points at the weekend. So he'll be going in full forward. And I mean, Ger, you're probably well aware of how good he is.
He is. He's an absolute giant of a man as well. He is a physical specimen, even into his mid-30s now. He is as strong as an ox, and he will take some looking after, no doubt, even as good as Sallins have been. He is someone that they'll have to watch carefully.
Yeah, I mean, I presume Sallins have done their homework, and obviously Grange are coming in and they're coming after a long time. But like this likes of, John and like Ned Pender and these lads, like they're tough men, they're hard men out in that part of the world. But he is such a wonderful footballer. I was trying to think of who'd pick him up, like one of the O'Donnells. Like it's kind of, I don't know. I couldn't really get my head around it. Like who would take him on? I just. Like, would you put John out around the middle and see how he gets on against Darragh Mangan? Just let the guys absolutely clatter off each other. It's wonderful achievement for Grange, to get there, and they're not going to be afraid of Sallins. These boys are absolutely afraid of nothing. And also, everybody in Kildare in the Intermediate Championship probably had this element of fear about Sallins because they all knew that they were red hot favourites, that they were excellent. Their Division 1 campaign. I would say, would anybody in Grange give a shite about Sallins? Are they going to they're going to be well aware of how good they are from what they've heard, but just go in and treat it like another game and see how they get on. So it should be good. I let Seamus talk about Sallins. I've spent weeks talking about
it. Well,
you're close enough to great. Close enough to Grange, Tommy, to be well qualified to talk about them. But
exactly.
No, look, I sat down and I think we probably spoke off air, about the credentials of Sallins, and maybe, and we said that no disrespect to Cara did so well last year, Alan Wood had done so well the year before that. And Kildare's name at the intermediate level in Leinster over the last, going back to maybe Munster Evan and Ballymore, there's others there as well who've won Leinster championships, and I just think that the shackles have come off Sallins now. They've suffered over the last couple of years trying to get out of Kildare out to win that intermediate championship. I just think whatever is put in front of them going forward. I'm excited to see what they can do, and I'm hoping that, you know, Grange, as you said, Tommy, will bring a lot to the table. That they'll cause problems for Sallins, but I just think Sallins are just, you know, they're the finished article, and it'll be interesting to see how far they can go. You know, I think listening to and talking to some of the Sallins people, it's one game at a time. They're not looking any further than Sunday. But from, I suppose, from a punter's point of view and ourselves and that, you know, you're hoping that they can go the whole way in Leinster again. But, you know, if you take one eye away from and look at the fixtures there, the quarter final, I mean, I'm meeting up in with the Meath champions, Kilbride, if it was them, or the Longford champions, that poses its own threat as well. So yeah, a lot of work to do for Sallins, but I'm excited about how far they can go. You know, Colin Dalton at intermediate level is probably as good as you'll get anywhere in Ireland, not alone in Leinster. And you know, he's the county final. I thought Luke Killian probably had maybe his best game of the year, or maybe in the last year and a half. He came right back into it, and then you add in the likes of James Dalton, the Kellys. You know, there's attacking options coming from everywhere. And then what do you say about Darragh Mangan? I mean, you know, probably as good a midfielder as is around. So yeah, look, it's a big game for them. It is a massive game, but I just think that especially at home in Conleth's familiarity, I just think they'll have a little bit of too much at the weekend. And as I say, looking forward to where it's going to go.
Well, I think you touched on it earlier on as well. We're into it at obviously a different period of the year in terms of the weather. Winter football is very different to the kind of sunshine football that Sallins would have been playing during the summer. They do seem like a side who are versatile and that it shouldn't bother them too much. They have a very experienced and knowledgeable manager in Jonathan Daniels, but I wonder, will they tweak at all their game plan to accommodate the change in weather and changing conditions that they're facing into over the weekend?
I don't know. I saw Sallins playing in the league, dirty March evening against Selbridge. I saw them playing against Selbridge and Sarsfields in Sallins. And that Sallins pitch, when a bit of rain falls on it, it's a bit of a slog, you know, and it can be a tough pitch to play on. And they train on it. And they train on it and they play on it. There's been a lot of rain, you know, lately. So I don't think so. I think it's when you train on a pitch that can be quite heavy. Now, again, there's some great work done out in Sallins as well, I know, and they have done a wonderful job. I'm not dogging their pitch now on this, because I'm just explaining how they let the grass grow along to, you know, get the good cut on it in the summer. But that stands to, because you see the Sallins lads, they're full of running near the end of matches. I don't know. The only thing I'm kind of looking out for is, I hope lads don't get caught out with, is we can see that side of the pitch under the stand getting very raw, and that's because there's a lot of traffic, as we all know there. You know, that's where the players are coming out. That's where the management are running up along. That's where all the action takes place before the match, after the match, and it has took a lot of wear. Like such a brilliant pitch, you know, in the space of a year, how it's grown up. Well, not even the space of a year, in the space of kind of 11 months of action, and how it's held up. So we've seen really bad conditions in St. Conleth's Park this year, and the pitch has always held up. So I don't think so. I don't think it would change. I think we're going to see something very similar out of Sallins than we have seen. It's just the fact that there's such an element of unknown about the opposition, that it might start off a little bit, I don't know, a little bit slower than we would be used to with Sallins, because we're used to them starting off like a train. Because they'll try to feel out Grange. You know, they would have known a lot of the teams they played this year. They would have known all about them. We see that a lot in Leinster matches. Starts off a little bit tentative. Just, we'll get a look at these lads, see what they're like. Then after 10 minutes, then we have the match of these lads. But as like Seamus said, over the last couple of years, our clubs in the intermediate championship in Leinster, I mean, you know, they've always gone above and beyond. Probably doesn't help Sallins the fact that they're 4-9 coming into this championship. I mean, Cara last year, go to Parnell Park, win the Leinster title. Alan Wood the year before, winning a Leinster title in Parnell Park. Both times, like especially the Alan Wood match, Scully Connell were supposed to be hot, and they were going to that's practically Parnell Park territory, isn't it, where they were from? And Alan Wood gave them a good beating over there. And then last Wood, Cara were fantastic against Naomh Marnock from Port Marnock. So Maybe we got away with it for a few years that people didn't. They underestimated our intermediate championship. They seem to have copped on this year now with such a super Sallins team appearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we look forward to that one on Saturday afternoon as well. And there are some familiar names elsewhere in that championship. And one that stands out, Hollywood, they had an unbelievable win in the intermediate championship in Wicklow after a replay, I think, as well. That they certainly live up to their name. I'm sure that the headline writers looking after those games had easy ones to talk about there. But Hollywood drama and Hollywood ending, they absolutely came from miles back to clinch that intermediate title and secure their place. And they play a Hunterstown side who, just from memory, I think 2 Mile House beat them on the way to winning the 2018 Leinster Intermediate Championship as well. I think that was the semi-final that they faced and beat Hunterstown Rovers. So, yeah, some good games there as well. So, Sallins v Grange on that side of the draw, as Seamus mentioned. Then the Longford champions are Darren Moybo, is it? Against Kilbride, sorry, it's small on my screen here. And then Hunterstown v Hollywood, and then Tubber Clare of Westmeath versus Mulnavat of Kilkenny on the opposite side of the draw. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing Sallins getting there intermediate Leinster campaign underway. That's the second of 2 games, as we said, in Seaton St. Conleth's Park on Saturday afternoon, because before that, we have in the Junior Championship, and I suppose just to get rid of any kind of confusion, we will refer to Grange as Grange Nolven here, our Grange in Kildare, to avoid any confusion with the Carlow Grange that will be facing Sallins. Grange Nolven, of course, they take on St. Bridget's on the Leinster Junior Championship at 1:15 on Saturday in Cedar St. Conleth's Park. And Tommy, you've been the man who has been digging into all the details of the opponents for the 3 Kildare champions, and in particular, I suppose this St. Bridget's side have a bit of a tale to tell, because they have been operating at a good level in Offaly, and they look to be a good side, and certainly are going to be strong opponents for Grange Nolven.
Yeah, they are. I think the most interesting part of this is, and this lends itself to a much wider discussion about championship formats, etc., is that they're not the Offaly champions. They actually lost the intermediate final in Offaly to Tullamore, but because Tullamore have a team in senior, they can't go up. Or I think it was, maybe it's senior B, whatever that second level is in Offaly. Yeah, they lost the final 2-8 to 10 points. So that's an odd one, because normally these guys that are coming into the provincial championship are champions. And it's, I don't know, it's again, it lends itself, like, imagine if we put a Naas second team into an intermediate championship, or if we put, it's probably unfair now to just say Naas, but a Naas or an Athy or a Selbridge, put them into the intermediate championship, how would they get on? Well, Tullamore have won the second tier in Offaly, and these guys, because are runners up to. So I messaged somebody from St. Bridget's before their final, because I was doing up the first iteration of this graphic, and thank you to them. They responded to me immediately. I just questioned it. I was like, guys, what happens if you lose on Sunday? Do you go on into Leinster, because Tullamore clearly can't go? And they're like, yep, that's correct. Hopefully we win, but if we lose, we're going to be in Leinster. So there you go. It's just a bit of an odd one. You don't see it in too many counties, but it does exist. It exists in our hurling championship. That's the closest thing that we can show about it, that Naas could win senior B, but then it's the finalists that go into the Leinster championship. As regards the actual team, I was reading up on a few of their match reports as well, and just on it as well, before I even went looking in, I met the Grange Nolven captain, Paul Huntington, the other day, and I don't know if you remember, Paul in his interview said to me after the game that from the start of the year they were looking at Leinster. You hear a lot of lads, come on, they'll be like, everything from now is a bonus. We'd like to get far. We had our eye in the county final. Grange Nolven at start of the year, and Paul cited as well. He said, we saw what Milltown did a couple of years ago, and Milltown beat us by a point, in the quarterfinal, semi-final. So he knows what they are. But he also said to me, he said to keep an eye out for. There's a young man playing for St. Bridget's. He said I can't remember his name, but he used to be a superstar, Offaly minor, only a couple of years ago. He's come back from injury, and he was right. So Grange Nolven have done their homework, and there's a young man there called Ben Kennedy that's playing for St. Bridget's, and he was a really exciting young player for the Offaly minor team a couple of years ago, and he broke his leg, and he's only coming back this year. But he's really finding form, according to anybody that talk to, that does follow these Offaly championships. He's supposed to be a really exciting player, and thankfully Grange and Olivan clearly know about him. I think he starts kind of corner forward, he drifts out a good bit. But listen, we've seen the defenders that Grange have, and the forwards that they've shut down this year. Grange and Olivan have, and they've done such a good job on some really, really good forwards in the championship that again, I'm going to repeat myself every time we're talking about any of these championships, but there is a sense of unknown. St. Bridget's getting beaten in their final. Are they going to come in with the same bounce? Obviously, go two ways. It's like, oh, we lost the final. We wanted to win that. We'll go into Leinster now. We'll see how we get on. Or we're still alive. We're still alive. Let's stay battling for it. That's kind of Grange. We will be looking to go deep. You can see St. Finian's there if you look forward into the quarter-final bracket, playing Clockbawn of Wexford. That St. Finian's, I think they're in Swords. There's two St. Finian's teams in Dublin, and the Swords team got through. I think the other one might be Donabate. But like Grange are probably looking to that. I know they said to take every game at a time, but Grange need to be tall in these championships, and just absolutely hit it hard, because it's the junior football championship that you just want to see these lads pushing, because the intermediate has got all the stage for the last couple of years. Ellistown last year, they got through a couple of games. They were all really low scoring, but it never really lit on it. But I listen. You know how much I love the junior championship. That's why I've been rabbiting on about this for the last couple of minutes. But I am really, really looking forward to seeing how Grange get on against, again, an unknown entity that aren't the champions of Offaly. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, Seamus, the last time Grange and Olivan were in Leinster competition, they actually went all the way to the final in 2005 and lost narrowly to Westmeath opposition, 9 points to 7. They still have Timmy Doyle in the team from that. They would have had Martin Leahy and Eamon Farrell in the management team, who would have played in that team as well. So they have that bit of know-how, but I suppose it's obviously the current team and the current starting 15 that Timmy Doyle is a part of. But it'll be the Bergen brothers, I suppose, the Cullen brothers. They'll be the men that have got Grange to this stage and have won that first title in 20 years, and now I suppose carry many of their hopes now going into the Leinster campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look back at the county junior final this year, Rathcoffey did, pose problems, did give them plenty to think about. We're still maybe in contention coming down the home stretch, and you'd wonder, Conor Harris was a massive loss to Rathcoffey, but again, a little bit like Sallins, Grange have been knocking on that junior door for the last couple of years. They're coming up against a St. Bridget's side who had, just speaking to somebody today, now it was pure coincidental, family member, but that are living down in Road, or in Croghan, which is where St. Bridget's are from, but they had a very good win in the semi-final over a fancied Forban side, but I think Tullamore are strong, and it was certainly they were happy to be still involved, I suppose, from a Leinster Championship point of view. We go back to last year, as Tommy alluded to there, Ellistown lost out by a point to Ballinagar in the semi-final down in Tullamore, and as they got through and some, as you said, on some low scoring, but this year earlier Ballinagar and Bridget's had come up against each other, probably only on a league basis, but Ballinagar won out that particular afternoon pretty strong. But I think Bridget's fancied their chances, but I think in Newbridge, Grange with the Bergens, as you say, Paul Huntington, Timmy Doyle brings that little bit of experience to it. You'd be hoping that they'll have enough on the day, but again, it's a little bit in the unknown, as Tommy said. You're going into a Leinster Championship. It's we've seen good teams getting beaten, and all last year when it was some team for the, maybe it was from Longford or that came to play Ellistown, really fancied their chances, brought a massive crowd with them, but Ellistown saw them off, probably a little bit lucky in the afternoon. But so I'm just saying, it is a championship that there's a lot of unknown about it, but you'll be hoping the Grange, they have the firepower very strong around the middle of the field. That 6, 8, 9 and 11, that could be what will see them over the line on Saturday afternoon.
Looking elsewhere in that championship, Tommy, the interesting name there stands out is Barcelona. I'm not sure what Yamal is doing there in a couple of weeks if he has the Westmeath champions in his sights there for that. But there has been, I suppose, some famous trips. I think Cullen got on an away trip in Amsterdam a few years ago in this championship, but you don't fancy the chances of Grange potentially going to Barcelona anytime soon.
No, I think when they were in when they're in the championship last year, I asked somebody and they kind of went, no, those trips don't happen now. It'll be whoever they're playing. So obviously the Westmeath. The reason, by the way, I have Westmeath champs and not the teams that are in the final, which I have for a couple of other ones. I think this is a pretty clean championship. I think the intermediate there's still a couple to be played, but the Westmeath championship is only at the semi-final stage. Crazy stuff, and I think it's the same as in intermediate. So I just actually now that just going back there when you mentioned Ballinagar, did I see them in the intermediate bracket? I think they're in. I'll just go back to it here. Yeah, you see they're in the Offaly intermediate final. Again, whether that's intermediate or senior B, but it's interesting now that they one junior got up into it then, and now
I think it's senior B. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so they went up the grade and then won that grade again, are into the final of that grade. So it goes to show you, like these teams that come up, it's quite rare. We see teams struggling in Kildare, obviously, when they come up a grade most of the time. But you're wondering, would Sallins be the team going back to the intermediate? Would Sallins be the team that might challenge in senior? And might Grange be the team, with their age profile that might challenge in intermediate? So I think we're in a really good place. I'll go back to that junior again. Sorry. I think we're in a really good place at the moment. Barcelona, by the way, is great. I think they play a 4-team tournament on a weekend. I think they play against maybe like a team from Brussels, a team from Lens, and a team from somewhere else. And it's called the European 15s or something. And they get through. But listen, they've done it a couple of years in a row now, and by all accounts, they beat the Kilkenny champions last year. I can't remember what their names were, but they definitely beat them because they won a match. They went on then, and I can't remember who they played, but it was on Clubber.
Was it Dicksboro?
I think they beat Dicksboro, was it?
Was it Dicksboro in Kilkenny?
Maybe that was
maybe
it.
So I remember them winning all right.
I can't remember who they played. I remember watching the next match, because I was so fascinated by them, and they lost the next match. It could have been the Laois champions. Or was it Fenna or somebody in Carlow? I can't remember. But either way, anyway, it's deadly to see a kind of a name like that, and it is pretty cool. I mean, you're kind of thinking, like could there be other, representation from, the likes of the UK and that. I think does it happen? Happens in something, ladies football, Camogie. It does happen in some other grade. I can't remember which one. I'll find out. But yeah, it's that's going to be really interesting. See the Fighting Cocks down there, Sean O'Brien country, coming through Carlow as well. So they'll have a home venue as well in a couple of weeks. They're straight into the quarterfinal. Always interesting. It is always cool to have a look around at these names, and some of these teams pop up you might not have heard of in a few years. And you see them back now after winning their county championships. It's always interesting to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wish all three Kildare men's champions the very best of luck. That doubleheader in Cedral St. Collins Park again on Saturday, with Grange starting off at 1:15 there in the junior championship against St. Bridget's of Offaly, followed then by Sallins v Grange of Carlow in the intermediate championship. Then, of course, on Sunday then a tie in Ockram against Baltinglass in the senior championship. So lots to look forward to. There is one other Leinster championship game that we will talk about momentarily, and that involves the Naas Camogie side, who are travelling to Wicklow. But just maybe to stick with Cedral St. Collins Park over the weekend, there is one big game that's being played there on Sunday. Seamus, I think you're the man who'll be there covering it. You're left at home there. Well, the rest of us are heading up the road to Ockram, but it's a big game, obviously. Maynooth v Selbridge in the minor hurling championship final.
It's actually in Mangard.
Oh, it's moved to Mangard now.
Sunday.
To reassess then. So yeah, but Maynooth v Selbridge, and I mean this with absolutely no disrespect to Naas, but it is nice to see a minor final in Kildare without Naas, and that's no disrespect to them, but huge respect to both Selbridge and Maynooth, who have put in a huge amount of effort, and we've already seen that bear fruit for both at senior level, particularly Maynooth, who would have had 4 of the players involved in this side feature at some stage in that senior county final against Naas a couple of weeks ago. So both sides, Selbridge and Maynooth, have put a lot of work in at underage level and are starting to see that pay off.
Yeah, I see. I think back to 2 years ago, Ger, Naas beat Maynooth by a point in that final, and it was a young 16-year-old Tom Power hit 116 that afternoon for Maynooth, and he's come through the ranks into county minor, county under 20 panel, and Maynooth seniors this year. But and that's goes a few more of that Maynooth panel, the likes of there's young Brody chap there, the Brody chap, he's a sub, but you have the midfielder, who won't come his name, Orland Bourne, sorry, yeah. So there's a few more of them there. Young Dunn at wing half forward, Colin Knox. They've been all knocking at the door. And it's been a long season for some of those young lads because they played a county minor semi-final and final in both hurling and football over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And hence why the hurling final has been pushed back to this Sunday, which gives them a little bit of time. But it's set up for a good final. Weather, I suppose, is going to have an impact again, but I think maybe Maynooth might have that just little edge to get over the line. But not a lot between those two sides over the last couple of years. But Maynooth are certainly moving in the right direction.
Selbridge too, Tommy. I think they've had some minors play senior hurling this year and are involved in the championship as well.
Yeah, to see it, once you see it, I couldn't believe from that Maynooth side that earlier in the year when I heard that Tom Power was a minor, I couldn't believe it. When you see when they're allowed to do it, like hurling is such a physical game, and when they're allowed to do it now, and you can play with the senior, the experience they get. Selbridge have had a rocky couple of years. They probably aren't where they want to be as regards senior hurling. So to see their minors getting to this final now and having the opportunity to help build things up again for them. Even Selbridge last year, I think they struggled even at the senior B championship in 2024. And that's always a bad sign if your second team is struggling pretty badly. I don't even know if they saw out the championship. I could be wrong there, but I think they were. I think they might have dropped out of it. And then the alarm bells went off for me big time when I heard that, because you're thinking Selbridge should have 3 teams in it, you would imagine, but maybe there is a little bit of a rebuilding job going on in there, and by all accounts, maybe it's coming to fruition now. So it is great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So Seamus will be there for KFM and the Kildare Nationalist covering that one on Sunday in Mangard Park at midday. Yeah, Maynooth v Selbridge in the Minor A Hurling Championship final. Going back to Saturday then, and we're going to look at Camogie. We're going to look at on-field matters first before obviously talking about the big issue in Kildare GAA over the past few days. But on-field, as I say, first up, Naas v Knockanana of Wicklow in the Leinster Intermediate Camogie quarter-final. Tommy, Naas, of course, went all the way to the final last year and lost by a single point. They've, I suppose, flew through the Kildare Championship this year, dominated Maynooth in the final as well, who were a young Maynooth side making their first appearance in a county final at senior level. So Naas, look, they're looking strong. They obviously have that taste of defeat last year, that narrow defeat. They were so unfortunate in that Leinster final last year, driving them on as well. And going up to Wicklow again, not to use that cliche again, it's probably going to be a tough one under difficult conditions in terms of the weather and stuff. But Naas will hope to get their Leinster campaign, get the ball rolling there.
Yeah, God, that was tough going last year. 110 to 19. I remember leading up to it, I was making the graphic first. They were playing a team called St. Bridget's in the final from Laois.
Yeah.
And I remember putting the logo up on my graphic, and I was, what is that? Is that a logo with St. Bridget with her putting her cloak out? What's that doing at a Laois club, even though it's called St. Bridget's, And contacted somebody I knew, and they said, sure, most of that cloak ended up in Laois as well. So I put me back in my box really quickly. But Naas just been brilliant again this year. They've all those young players coming through. They looked strong in that final, which is such a big thing in Camogie. If you do have young players, sometimes you can lose out in physicality, but they looked so good, because that wasn't a light Moorfield team. It was two powerful teams, but they looked so good. I've been going on about Caoimhe Maher all year. Obviously, she is such a super forward. Rebecca McDermott and Aoife McDermott. they have it all over the field. It's a tough place to go, Knocknana. Anybody that's been up that neck of the woods, I think I was saying to you earlier, Ger, that yeah, it's a bit like altitude training. You need to know what you're doing there. Second highest village in Ireland, I think. So it's tough going, and if the weather's bad, God Almighty, that's not somewhere now I'd like to be. But you know, these Naas girls are tough. They're tough, hardened girls. So they should be looking forward to this, because they should be looking to right the wrongs of last year. You know, they've put in so much hard work over the years. Such brilliant people behind that Naas Camogie team that they put in hours in the depth of winter when it's dark and windy and rain. I've met them up in Naas pitch, and they're there watching training sessions, taking notes. I'd love to see them going and getting up, because Knocknana won the All Ireland Junior last year, and as you know, you have to win the All Ireland of a grade for your county to be for you to be able to go up to whatever grade is next. So like this is the quarter final. I'm pretty sure the senior Camogie Championship in Leinster starts at the semi-final stage, or maybe there's only one quarter final, but there's need for more teams in it. We saw with Naas, for example, in the hurling, Naas had to win the intermediate All Ireland, didn't they? To make the jump. Yeah, so I presume it's something similar, but you would really hope now that Naas can do it. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a good one on Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to that one, even though you've done as much as possible to try and turn me off going up to Knocknana on Saturday there, Tommy. But yeah, looking forward to that one, and hopefully Naas can get against their campaign. But yeah, I suppose Naas Camogie, they found themselves at the heart of I suppose national headlines during the week, and obviously all stemmed from our freelance photographer who does a lot of work with the Nationalist, Aisling Hyland, the post that she put up regarding both the ladies football final that was held in Siglo St. Collins Park on the 3rd of October and the Camogie final that was played 7 days later on the 10th of October. Serious issues, I suppose, raised by Aisling, Seamus, that they obviously made their way to the national airwaves as well as KFM and covered locally as well. And I suppose when Kildare GAA and LGFA are on the national airwaves, it's rarely for anything good or rarely for anything positive. But there are, I suppose, some serious issues here, and it's, I suppose, only right that they're raised. And yes, both Kildare GAA and LGFA have released statements to the media in the last couple of days regarding the issues that were raised, but I suppose not hugely satisfactory statements released by either, I wouldn't think, and probably not really dealing with the issues that were raised through Aisling Hyland that actually occurred on the evenings at hand.
Yeah, look, I suppose the one thing that I've been thinking about over the last couple of days was when this all came to fruition, and when Aisling, brought up the point about it, was that this week we were into week 4 since the football final. We're into week 3 since the Camogie final, and we hadn't heard anything about it. I mean, the LGFA and the Camogie board or any of the clubs, not that we're aware of, had made any representation to the county board about maybe any concerns that they've had. But, when Aisling made her statement, or when she on social media, whatever, and she got her airtime on the likes of KFM and on News Talk, it certainly opened a massive can of worms. And, the questions were there to be asked. And, players from different clubs, Barnes's and that, from Maynooth, have made their thoughts known. It's a worrying sign. The Kildare GAA will, let you know that everything was in order. There was no issues as regards showers, facilities, the use of any of those, and that there is a precedent there that lights will be turned off 15 minutes after the end of every game. Now, we've seen that at senior inter-county level, at senior club level. I think we might have mentioned it, the likes of Naas and Coola last year. And maybe there's an issue there as regards residents, that there's a certain time scale. Are the lights on timers, or probably not, because you probably can't allow for that if the games goes extra time or different things like that. But a worrying aspect right across the board, something needed to be addressed. It's something that nobody in Kildare, GAA, Camogie, or ladies football wants to see, have that coming to the table, and becomes a nationwide thing. We have a massive facility in Newbridge, a wonderful, for everybody who's involved in sport within the county. And, something like that coming up does leave a little bit of a sour taste. And I mean, I know Kildare GA and the LGFA's letters sort of distance themselves from anything in relation to any disappointments that they might have had. The LGFA were certainly pushing forward and happy the way things had gone, and looking forward to having their convention there, and looking forward to working together. So maybe when you look at the Camogie board, I haven't seen anything in the line of a statement from them or heard anything back. But it's not nice to have girls in a situation where they're voicing their opinions and voicing their concerns, regardless of what grade they're playing or who they are. And it's just something that we need to put it to one side, learn from it, and move forward. I think Tommy will probably speak about Grace Clifford, former county captain, made a statement to the Leinster leader, and I think that maybe put a line under it, if that, for the want of a better word. But Kildare is a county, male, female. We don't need that type of attention, and hopefully the lessons will be learned.
Yeah, Tommy, there obviously was some issue with the showers on the evening of the ladies' football final, which, if you remember, was I think an evening when the storm was hitting the country and county. And I mean, when you have two players from opposite dressing rooms in Ciara Wheeler and Grace Clifford from Easttown and Ciara Wheeler of St. Lawrence's, there obviously was some sort of an issue there. And look, that is very regrettable. It shouldn't happen. I'm sure it was a mistake along the way, and that definitely shouldn't happen in future for men's or ladies teams in St. Conleth's Park. But obviously the issue with the lights then was another issue. But for me, the kind of crux of the matter was the senior finals being played on a Friday night. I think the lights will be turned off very quickly after the final whistle of any game there, whether they're men's or ladies. Yes, extra cognizance should have been taken of the fact that there were senior county finals, and maybe allowed the girls the opportunity to get those celebratory pictures on the fields with the floodlights still on. But I think going forward, and again, look, maybe this is something that is pie in the sky. Kildare GAA would say the calendar is absolutely blocked up, probably, and St. Conleth's Park is in use so often. But wouldn't it be lovely to see St. Conleth's Park be used in the manner that it is? Croke Park is used at national level, and that the Camogie and the ladies' football in separate weekends can have a finals day there and play more than just their senior final, have maybe 3 or 4 finals there on the day, and have the full use of St. Conleth's Park. But I know saying that the calendar is absolutely chock-a-block. Both of those finals that were played, there was men's championships games on a Saturday or Sunday later on that weekend. So it is easy saying that. Actually finding the space in the calendar to do those sort of things is more difficult. But I suppose these are the kind of things that are going to become more and more prevalent if integration with the LGFA and the Camogie Association under the GAA umbrella is going to happen, as everybody hopes it will, in the next kind of year to 18 months.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Was there a question there? Listen, everything you said was right. I think I think lead off. I think it's quite important to say that Aisling Hyland is an extremely passionate supporter of ladies' games. She's a huge supporter of the Irish women's soccer team. I'm pretty sure she was in Belgium at the match with the supporters club when she was taking some of these calls. So this doesn't come from a place of malice. This comes from a place where likes of Aisling might feel that she might have a bit of a platform because she's such a good photographer and she goes to a lot of matches. A lot of people follow her, so maybe she felt it was up to her to put her voice forward. Again, there was statements come out from every side. Everybody's fighting their corner. When we hear that players from the ladies football team, didn't have hot showers, but then Roisin Ford said that the Camogie did have hot showers. You're hoping then that's some kind of an oversight. I know the GA statement said that they did have hot showers, but like as you say, when you have two players, especially somebody with platforms of Grace and Ciara, and when they come out and say something like that, it must be true. I was at the Camogie final. I was the only person in the terrace, which I was on the halfway line directly across from the stand, which was packed. There was a great crowd there. And the final whistle went, and I picked up my phone, I took a picture of the pitch, and I put up the score, as I always do, and I posted on social media. And I walked down, and as I took one step off the step of the terrace, the lights on my side of the pitch went out. So both floodlights went out in the terrace. That was a minute after final whistle, 2 minutes after final whistle. So I was in darkness because I was laughing with somebody. It was a Mayor Fernier or something collecting stuff, and she looked up at me and she said, "Be careful coming down," because I was making my way towards the gate. When I got onto the pitch as well, it was something that Aisling brought up in one of her earlier tweets that she didn't come back to. But when I got onto the pitch and I started to make my way over, people were asked to leave the pitch. An announcement did go out, can all supporters please leave the pitch? I didn't think that was great either, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I will say when I went, when I went to the stand, so the cup was handed to, so still the floodlights, the 2 floodlights on either side of the stand were on, and obviously the stand lights were all on. We can see them there, they are quite bright as well. It was quite unusual that the Naas captain got the cup, and she was presented the cup, and then she brought it over and she said her wonderful few words, but she really wanted to come down to the girls to lift it. I remember thinking at the time it was really nice because she could have been up there on her own. We see a lot of the men's teams, they gather up. I don't know why the Camogie didn't do this, but she was up there on her own. But she didn't lift it on her own stage. She wanted to come down, which I really thought was nice. But she came down the steps, and as she got to the girls, we've seen the video. The video's on social media, so we can see exactly how it happens. She lifts the cup, the girls all celebrate around her, and both floodlights go out. Now, that was, people were looking around thinking, that could have been, you could have given a minute or two there now for them to enjoy their celebrations. I don't know how these questions can be answered. It's a case of who turned out the lights that night. Okay, you turned out the lights. What happened? Did you not know that they were still celebrating? Maybe those switches are out the back, or maybe somebody did decide that, yes, this is where we're going to cut it now. We're all getting on. It's a cold night. We don't know, but possibly in the background, those questions should be answered because of obviously it's the publicity is out there. Everybody's fighting their own corner, but it's something that should be answered because going forward, integration is something that's going to be a huge part of all of our lives. All fans of Gaelic football, Gaelic games, it's going to be a huge thing going forward, and it's kind of, I don't think there's going to be any issues, obviously, between the 3 associations, between integration, because there seems to be a good relationship. But the players and the fans and everybody has to be brought in, and there are things like this can't fester, and they can't just drag on, and everybody's going to be looking at the next game, or are the lights going to be on, or whatever. But Jerry, you brought up at the start of the show that this happened in Hawkfield at the Reserve A final. Can you imagine if that was the ladies' final that was in Hawkfield, and it wasn't on because there was no diesel in the generator? There'd be murder. There'd be absolute murder.
That's what I would say, in fairness to, and again, we're not even sure that it was Kildare GA who were actually operating the St. Conleth's Park that night, or Cedar St. Conleth's Park. It may well have been the LGFA who were running it on that evening. But I've been there at men's matches, and the lights are shut off very, very quickly. And again, it may be possibly, I had heard mentioned in the past that possibly is to do with the Residents Association around Cedar St. Conleth's Park. Of course, this is the first year that we're in operation of floodlights being used in Cedar St. Conleth's Park, and particularly now when it gets all the more noticeable now when the evenings are getting darker. And yet, there's no waiting around at men's matches. And I know from spending an inordinate amount of my life standing outside dressing rooms waiting for people to come out and stuff as well, those lights are shut off very, very quickly. Those main floodlights are shut off very, very quickly at men's games. But there should definitely have been the possibility of an extra 5 or 10 minutes just to allow to get the girls to get those kind of team pictures that are going to be hung up in the clubhouse for generations to come. It would have been lovely to get them out on the pitch. And I know St. Lawrence's, I think that the football day had probably a little bit more leeway in terms of some extra minutes than was afforded to the Camogie girls for whatever reason. But yeah, as you said, Seamus, I think Grace released a statement, whether it was through another media outlet or it was on her social media there. So I'll just quickly run through what Grace said, who of course played in that ladies football final for Eadstown, and of course has been such a standard bearer for ladies football in the county. So just quickly to read through it, because obviously people are listening on the audio as well. So Grace on her social media statement said, "As we can all agree, the situation that occurred was unacceptable. The photos clearly showed that the lights were off, and many players, myself included, experienced cold showers after the game. Rather than pointing fingers, let's simply acknowledge what happened, accept that it wasn't good enough, and focus on moving forward. The bigger picture here is about improvement. We want to ensure these situations don't happen again. It was an incredible experience to play our county finals in the county grounds, a place we've watched so many men's games which are rightly held there. No one is questioning that. It's a Kildare GAA facility and all those games belong there. All we're asking is that going forward, more ladies' games can also be played in our county grounds. This isn't about division or blame. It's about progress, fairness, and working together for the good of Kildare football. And Seamus, as you probably wouldn't expect any less from Grace Clifford, that's a really sensible statement with a lot of really good points. And I suppose the big one maybe to take from it is that obviously from a ladies' point of view, they would like to see more games played at the county grounds. Certainly the development of the grounds there opens up the possibility, I would imagine, of more double headers involving the ladies county team and giving them an opportunity to maybe play in front of a big crowd when the men's teams are involved, and also with the Camogie side, possibly with the hurlers. Obviously they've got some massive games coming up in 2026, but I suppose from a club point of view as well, Aisling was very strong about the point that she made as well, that it was only the 2 senior finals that were played. They were the first club games from the ladies side of things played in Cedar St. Collins Park, and it's just about a year open now at this stage. And I suppose they would like for more opportunities to play at the Cedar St. Collins Park, but that's going to take a lot of organising as well, because as I said, Cedar St. Collins Park and even Mangard Park is almost full to bursting point. And to find those additional times in the calendar is going to be difficult, but I suppose that's just what will need to be done, and people have to get around the table and look to organise that. And again, going back to integration, that is something that is going to become more and more of an issue in the next coming years.
Yeah, and I think the word there, Ger, is integration, because, until the day that you can get the Camogie board, the LGFA and the Kildare County board sitting around the table, with Noel McKenna, who would be the man with the CCC with the fixtures and that, to try to come to an agreement that everybody gets their fair shot at what it might be. But when you go back there, just one other thing that was going through my mind when we were talking, not to get away from the point about Grace's statement, was like, I know that, and I was there, and maybe Tommy will remember, like when Sallins won the county intermediate final, the lights were gone out as quick as, because I remember doing an interview with Luke Killian under the stand in the dark, for the want of a better word. So whether it's ladies or men, maybe the lights need to be left on for an extra 5 or 10 minutes for those photographs and the bits and pieces that can go with it. But you have to admire Grace for her, for her input, her statement. That statement, clearly outlines the way maybe we're all feeling, and that's, going forward, clear and level heads and a bit of communication for the good of everything that's Kildare football, male or female, and Camogie. And I think, it's, as you said, Sarah, it's maybe just a case of sitting down, ironing out the problems. We go back to Kildare footballers and hurlers this year in Cedar St. Collins Park, that double header. Those girls deserve an opportunity, whether it be the ladies footballers or the Camogies, to be part of a double header with the footballers or with the hurlers going down the road. In 2026, there's going to be some massive games. And listen, any person who's played football, any person who wants to be in Cedar St. Collins Park and have a decent crowd looking at what's going on, everybody deserves that, male or female. And I think that's the good point to take out of it. And Grace can be proud of that statement, because it's from the heart, and it's probably something good to end on, for, to bring this situation to a close.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I am conscious that we're 3 middle-aged men talking about ladies' sports, but I think we've all been big supporters of ladies' games in the past, and will continue to be in the future. And I think we all see any lady or woman pulling on a club or county jersey, they deserve the same respect that any man who does as well. So yeah, we'll obviously look forward to covering the games, and hopefully this is just a bit of a blip, and as well, and as Grace said, lessons will be learned, and there's plenty of lessons to be learned, and hopefully we will see plenty more good relationships between the LGFA, the Camogie, and Kildare GAA in the future. So Tommy, I know we're actually conscious of the time now. I know we're running on a little bit, but I know you wanted to bring up just an issue as well, something totally different now as well, because we're moving on to, I suppose there's been a lot of talk in the national papers, and there is a proposal, I believe, going forward to the GAA unfortunately, I suppose, for Philly McMahon, he's become the poster boy of it, and every newspaper that is talking about this issue is using a picture of Philly, and you have a picture of Philly there as well. Yep. Yeah, certainly. Obviously, he is by far not the only one. He just seems to be the one in the spotlight at the moment. But it is, of course, the issue that a proposal is set to go to the GAA potentially that would see, I suppose, managers restricted to working within their own county, working within their own club. So it would mean that the high-profile outside appointment, like Philly McMahon into Naas this year. Again, he's far from the only one to emphasise that, but yeah, that could be a thing of the past, and will be certainly an interesting development. There's certainly pros and cons of outside managers coming in, and I would suggest particularly to the weaker counties and maybe even to ourselves as a hurling county, we have obviously benefited immensely in the past, and particularly in recent past, with the likes of Joe Quaid coming in, and then David Hershey and obviously Brian Dowling at hurling. But yeah, what would your views of that potentially be? And would there be there was a development counties, I think Kildare were called at hurling at the time. There was a backdoor or a backdoor that was allowing even players to be involved from different counties as well on the Kildare team at that stage for the hurlers. But how would you see that issue developing?
Well, I think let's be honest about things. This all stems from one thing, and it's money. You know, that's it, and it's going to be a huge discussion over the years in the GAA. It's as simple as that. It's like it's the elephant in the room. It's the thing that nobody talks about. It's the thing that everybody wants to talk about because everybody knows about it. Is that there's a lot of money going around, and there's a lot of people that are worried that maybe managers are coming from other counties farther away because they see maybe there's an opportunity, you know, to get whatever expenses they get. This is not a dig at Philly McMahon, as you said at the start. It genuinely isn't. We put up the picture there because, you know, he has become the poster boy of it. He's probably a lot closer to Naas than some managers around the country that travel to their respective clubs that they've taken over. I think it will be a very difficult thing and a very messy thing to bring in, because what you have to do is sweep of the whole country and see who's involved and tell them get out. You know, you're not welcome here anymore. It's obviously it's a long-term thing. It won't be voted in. No, I just can't see it happening. For me, I really, there was something really, really satisfying about the way that Athy won the championship this year based on who their management team was. If you can win a senior county championship with two local lads, you know, at the helm, to have took over at not a difficult time, but like taken over from a big character, you know, as well, that they had a lot to prove. Then you win your county championship. We saw the celebrations in Athy, and it's two of your local lads, and I just thought it was brilliant. I mean, like Joe Murphy came into Naas, and he was almost like an adopted Naas man, but before he left, you know, he made such an impression, and he got on so well in the town. So there'll be so much to it, but I just think it really is a fascinating conversation to have, because personally, I would love to see, as a fan of the Kildare club game, more clubs, first of all, using their own men and their own women in these situations for these roles. That's not always possible. It's just simple as that. It's just not possible. But within the county, let's get the best. There could be a guy in a Moorfield that really wants to cut his teeth at management of a junior team, you know, but he has aspirations, obviously, of going up to senior or whatever, and he wants to go for a job, and he's using the Clinched app to go for it, and he's using social media. But like, you know, he's brought up because he's a Kildare man, and I love to see those guys coming up. But at the same time, Philly McMahon wants to cut his teeth in Kildare, I would say, as a pathway to possible inter-county management, or possibly managing what he might see as would be a bigger club. Now, I could be wrong there, but I presume every manager wants to be an inter-county manager. And who's to say he's wrong in doing that? Naas is a huge job. He applied for it, and he got it. You know, so that's the kind of thing where fair play to him for getting it. We put his picture up, and I'm kind of regretting putting it up now. So I think I was a little bit harsh in putting it up, but yeah, it's an argument. It's something that will come back. We'll come back to it again in a few weeks and months when it comes back around again. Hopefully there'll be a bit more meat to chew in the conversation. But yeah, it's just an interesting one.
But Seamus, I suppose we all have heard of clubs who have let's be honest, that they have spent money to bring in, and again, this is not Philly McMahon I'm talking by any means. His credentials go before him, but there have been clubs who have spent money to bring managers in and been burnt. They've been, I suppose, snake oil salesmen is the term that's often used about some managers who are on the merry-go-round. But there's a lot of, I suppose, people who focus on the negatives of managers, outside managers. There's huge positives as well for managers coming in, especially again to weaker counties from kind of bigger counties. There's an opportunity for managers, as Tommy's saying there, to gain experience outside the county. Moorfield are a team there who have, I think, maybe have more managers come from the club maybe in the last kind of 10, 15 years than any other in Kildare. A lot of those members have gone to other clubs around Kildare and outside of Kildare had experiences as well. So there's an awful lot of focus on the negativity of outside managers, but to take that out of the GAA as well would there'd be a lot of positives lost from those situations as well if that was to happen.
Yeah, look, if you go back to, I suppose, the root of it is, as Tommy said, initially is money, and that's where it's been, and it's something that Jarlath Burns has got into his mind and whatever else over the last, since he came to the table as the president of the GEA, and he's probably the one that's trying to push it to eliminate it. I agree with Tommy 100%. Can't see that happening in any shape or form. You're not going to monitor every club in the county to make sure that Seamus Dillon is not up in Ballymore Eustace or Ger McNally is not down in Castledermot or whatever it might be. I can't see that happening. It's just too big of a thing. It's a bit like the dodgy boxes going to find people. I don't know who's going to knock on the doors to see in the whole length of the country what's there or not. But yeah, I agree with you 100%, Ger. When you look at some of the managers that have gone to different clubs, yes, the money that's bandied about and the figures that you hear of what some managers are getting within the county of Kildare, it's it's crazy, but it's there, and it's something that maybe clubs are going to have to look at, to cut for there to be a cut-off point or whatever. But when you take certain managers around the county, you have the likes of guys, as you say, even maybe the Moorfields, the Brian McGrogans who went to the likes of Kilcullen. I think he got a junior championship with them. You had the likes of Mark Murnan going up, having 2 good years up in the likes of Clougharinka, keeping them at senior. And they're just 2 guys that come to mind straight away who are out there making a name for themselves, bringing their knowledge, whatever, to other clubs. And there are clubs there. I know of one that I only spoke to this week, trying to find a manager, somebody to come in to do that job. And Clinched is there for that particular exercise, and that's working really, really well. But I, for one, I think, okay, there has to be some sort of a cap or something put on the money that's going around. But I certainly don't have any issues with, club managers from someone from Suncroft going to Kilcullen, or if somebody from St. Lawrence's has gone to Dunlavin, or, I think that's for the good of it. There's guys who are experienced, the guys who are good, they're bringing their knowledge to other clubs, and I think that can only be a positive. But look, you could argue it and discuss it for at length, but as I say, I can't see it being monitored, number one. But I think it's positive that guys are bringing their knowledge and their skills and whatever it might be. Like, I mean, there's clubs in Kildare, you take the likes of Johnny Donnelly this year. Strange when he was with Milltown, involved his own son and nephew playing with Ellistown when they met in the championship. They just add to the occasions, and I think it's it's all good. I don't ever see there being any major issues, as I say. Okay, maybe there's a cut-off point when it comes to whatever type of money you have to spend, but a lot of clubs don't have it. They're working hard to survive. Some of the bigger ones maybe have it, and they're able to dish it out. But at the end of the day, it's positive. That's my feeling on it anyhow.
Would we ever have those scenes there behind you, Tommy, and those flags flying if it wasn't for an outside manager coming into Kildare and giving us those wonderful memories under Mick, and even more recently, I suppose, Ger McNally as well coming in. But yeah, look, that's going to be something that'll rumble on, and probably through the winter months and things die down a little bit on the pitch. There's always these discussions that develop off it, and convention and Congress times and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, no doubt that's a discussion that will rumble on through the winter months. But just before we finish up, Tommy, we're going to just throw our eyes over some other sporting stories outside of the GAA around Kildare. Looking at some soccer, suppose nationally, just to mention, Shamrock Rovers obviously clinching their league title. Michael Noonan from Elliston wasn't involved against Galway on yesterday evening as we record this now on Wednesday evening, as they got the result that won the league. But obviously Michael has played a big part in them winning that competition. He'll be lined up for, I think he's heading off tomorrow, looking at social media there with the Irish under-17s to Qatar to feature in that World Cup. But there was a young Kilcullen man, Igor Vasilin, who found himself prominently placed there in some of the pictures afterwards in the celebrations. He was involved in the subs there, and maybe will make his Shamrock Rovers debut over the weekend now once that they have clinched that league. But more locally, the Georgina Donnelly Premier Division Cup was played in Mallarney Park on Sunday, and it was a great win for St Anthony's against Kildare Town. Kildare Town have had a fabulous season, winning that Premier Division, getting to the Lumsden Cup final. Probably would have been fancy to win that, but St Anthony's are a club who've grown exponentially over the last number of years under Keith Powell. He's done an incredible job building that club up, and that was a huge win for them to get their hands on that Georgina Donnelly Premier Cup.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Absolutely. When Antos, as they call themselves, I remember when they appeared there all those years ago, I was like, who are these lads? They're Kilcullen. They're not Kilcullen. It was. I don't know whether it was needed to just. I was wondering how they would survive down there. I was like, geez, where are they going to get the players from, and what's the catchment area? But they've done so well. They definitely have 2 teams in league. I wonder, do they have 3? But to win that cup will bring them on so much. And as you said, a big shout out to Kildare Town. Like, what a year they've had. I mean, that's it. Like the Kildare Towns and the Coyle Doves and these guys. As Kildare soccer football fans, you want to see them back up at the top, playing the best football. These are teams that have been around for donkey's years to help build the Kildare League, and you want to see the likes of these teams back up at the top challenging. So, fair play to both teams at the weekend. It's great to see the advancement in both of the clubs.
Yeah, and there was an interesting goalkeeper for St Anthony's as well. The Kildare All-Ireland under-20 goalkeeper, Cormac Parker, turning his hand to the soccer pitch these days, as his father, Algie, would have done many times down through the years as well. But he was the goal for St Anthony's and kept a clean sheet in that 2-0 win. So well done to Keith Powell and all involved with that. Set up to actually play again this weekend, I think. St Anthony's are against Kildare Town, and a win there against the Kildare Town side who've already won the league would secure a 3rd place finish for them in their first season in the Premier Division. So that will be an outstanding finish to the season for them. Turning to different shape ball then, Tommy, again, we have obviously the focus of the Irish International Rugby team. More locally, Naas had their first AIL win last weekend, but looking ahead to Saturday evening, probably half the country or more will be looking at the television, checking into what's happening in Soldiers Field. Ireland taking on the All Blacks, obviously. Ty Byrne giving the nod. And, well, actually, I'm going to hand this one to Seamus because he must be absolutely outraged that Suncross Sam Prendergast has been overlooked in the number 10 jersey and has to settle for a place in the replacements bench. And, yeah, that battle between Prendergast and Crowley for the number 10 jersey takes another twist and goes in favour of Crowley this weekend.
Yeah, well, look at it. I have to say, in fairness to Jack Crowley, he's been the man in form in the early stages of the year, but I suppose you can go back and have a look at the All Blacks game last year was the one that had him losing his place, and Sam had come in after that. But look at, you're dealing with 2 exceptionally good out halves. I'd have to say it. In fairness to Jack Crowley, he's the man in holding the cards at this particular stage of the season. Well worthy of that, and look, Sam Prendergast will be well grounded and know that he'll get his chance again. But yeah, look, it's good to see. I mean, it's an Irish team. It's a small bit experimental to it in a certain extent with McCluskey back in the centre. You don't have Keenan at full back, and so from that point of view, there's a couple of changes there. But looking forward to the next matches in the autumn series and the Six Nations. Ireland certainly, need to maybe find a couple of new players. Bundy Aki being left out, he's always been a go-to man for Farrell there in the centre. So, some of these guys have a lot of mileage on the clock. They're starting to get on in years as well. So, that'll be it. But Ty Byrne back there in the second row, I would have imagined if Joe McCarthy was available, he'd be back at his favourite number 6 position. And he's a massive man playing the wing forward. I mean, his ability to turn over ball in rucks, and that is something that Ireland will Baird is in there instead of him. So yeah, looking forward to that game Saturday evening. Hopefully I'm home from Hawkfield in time, and I'll looking forward to see how it goes. But yeah, look at Sam Prendergast and Jack Crowley will certainly be the 2 men. Although in fairness to Byrne, who's come back from being in England, he certainly has had a couple of good games this year. So there could be 3 guys vying for the play and going to the World Cup in, next year. So yeah, but looking forward to Saturday evening. Should be a good game.
You actually know the Prendergast family would have very well, and would have seen Sam growing up, and obviously himself and the brother Keane would have had a dalliance in a Suncroft jersey. Had they taken another route, they could be leading Suncroft in the intermediate championship. But they're obviously a great sporting family. They have the sister Lara as well, who's been involved in underage GAA with Kildare too. So great family there as well. The mother, obviously aware of the Carlo as well, so they come from really good stock as well, and very grounded, as you say. Sam has had a lot of pressure to deal with during his kind of fledgling international career, and although it's maybe a step back to not start this game, he's still a player of huge talent and has a lot to offer both Leinster and Ireland going forward.
Yeah, look at the Prendergasts are synonymous with sport in general, because whether it was soccer, rugby, golf, no matter what it'd be, and I often laugh because I remember last year, 2 years ago now, when Kildare, Diana Hoare was over the Kildare ladies, and Lara Prendergast got to make her debut, her first game for them, and I met Keane coming out after the match, and his mother and father, and I said, Sam didn't make it. He said, oh no, he's gone golfing. That's his second love, and just the sister didn't come into the equation, so it was that was it. But yeah, two wonderful footballers, like and the Gaelic field. Sam and Keane, both of them had won underage honours with Suncroft. I remember being involved with a Suncroft minor team back in 2018, and Keane had made his way onto the Leinster panel at that particular stage, and we tried to coax him to play the final that afternoon, but we didn't need him. But look, they come from good stock. I mean, Garvin Ware was a massive footballer for Carla down the years, and so the two lads didn't miss out on it. And their mum Kira is there as well, and Lara's a wonderful footballer as well, playing in the middle of the field for Suncroft ladies. So yeah, look at a good family, good sporting family, and Mark the father will certainly make sure that they're all grounded. There won't be any big heads or anything like that in the Prendergast household.
Lara's captain, isn't she, of Suncroft this year for such a young girl? I'm pretty sure she was. Yeah, so it's a great achievement for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was. Yeah, she was. Yeah.
You mentioned families, of course. Jamie is named as well. Jamie Osborne, of course, from Naas, is named the fullback for that Irish team. Of course, his brother Andrew as well plays for Leinster as well. And best of luck to Jamie and Tig as they start that game. And hopefully Sam will get good game time as well. And while we're mentioning rugby families, we had a lovely picture on the back of the Kildare Nationalist this week with Kieran Mangan making his Leinster debut last week. He was alongside his brother Dermot, of course, who was playing for Leinster as well. And of course, Dara Mangan was also there, and all the family were there to cheer on the two brothers. And of course, Dara will be looking at GAA matters this weekend as Sallins captain in that Leinster Intermediate Championship. But yeah, Kieran Mangan getting his first cap for Leinster, no doubt the first of many, and he will continue to line out for his brother for many years to come, hopefully in the blue of Leinster, and maybe even the green of Ireland at some stage as well. Who knows? But yeah, this has gone on for a long podcast. So Pat obviously does a much better job than me to keep you curtailed when you start giving your opinions on things, because yeah, we've gone on for a little longer than planned, but all gold, I'm sure. And yeah, great to have Seamus making his debut. I'm sure Seamus, the jersey is in your hands now, so it's up to the others to come back and fight for their place. But you're the man in the hot seat there for the moment. And thanks, Tommy, as always, for your thoughts and opinions. And yeah, absolutely looking forward to a big weekend as we went through all those games. If you are out and about, enjoy the matches. Hopefully we'll have plenty of Kildare victories to talk about, and of course we'll be back next week to have a look back at all those games, win, lose or draw. But as I said, hopefully we'll be talking about some big wins for those Kildare teams, and they'll give us plenty to talk about through the winter months. But for now, thanks very much for listening and watching.